In today's live stream, let's talk about a role that leaders worth following do a lot and do it really, really well, which is to simplify that which is complex so that the team understands what it needs to do. We live and work in a nest of complex adaptive systems. And one of the characteristic of this kind of a system is that with time and experience, things tend to become more complex and more interdependent. That's true with any complex adaptive system, more so with open complex adaptive systems, which are our organizations in a way, right? So that's entropy. It's a very, very well-known concept in physics that the entropy increases in every open complex adaptive system. That's exactly what happens in our work as well. And as a leader, it is our responsibility to understand this increasing complexity and make sense of it. And not just make sense of it, we also need to then break it down to its simplest form in terms of what does all of that complexity mean for our teams and share this with our teams so that they don't have to struggle with this complexity in their work. It makes their work simpler. Now, if that's exactly what we are supposed to do, then the question that arises is how can we do this for our teams? So there are three key skills that come to fore in this case that we need to learn and master if we really want to be a leader worth following and someone who can take the complexity inherent in an open complex adaptive system and simplify it for our teams. So there are three skills, right? So number one is seeking, number two is sense making or sensing, and number three is sharing. So let's break down each one of them, right? So the first step in the entire process of knowing is to know what information do we need to seek so that we can see the change in the system dynamics and also find out where is the complexity growing. It is also important for us to figure out how different parts of the system are connected to each other and how a change in one part of the system leads to both intended and unintended consequences elsewhere in the system, right? So we can do this by taking a step back and continuing to monitor the complexity of the system from a little back or from a little above so that we see the entire system at play. One way to see this is also through the amount of specialization that someone requires in order to understand the system. So the more specialization that is required for you to understand the system, the higher the complexity is in that particular system. And figuring out how the entire system comes together, the different components of the system, and how these systems interplay with each other is super important, right? So that's the entire thing around seeking. And of course, then the next step is making sense of whatever we have seen, which is sensing. Once we've identified that the system that is getting more and more complex with time among all the different systems that we are looking at and the interplay that we are looking at, we need to figure out where complexity is growing and then understand what that complexity is about. This is about how does that particular system work as a self-contained unit and as a part of the larger system and how it interacts with the larger system. This is about understanding the interrelatedness of the complex adaptive system and how the relationships within the components work with each other. Uh, Once you understand all of that, you need to be able to simplify it. Meaning, you understand the nature of the system, you understand the relationship of the system with all the other systems around you, and then you look at what is it that your team needs in order to operate at full capacity or in order to operate at peak performance levels, and figure out where does this overlap happen. And once you understand where this overlap happens or what is it that your team needs to know about the complexity in the system, you need to be able to share the simplified understanding which is relevant for the respective team members, which means that you hide complexity which they need not know and expose them of the complexity that they need to know and understand in order for them to operate at peak capacity. Right? So sharing is all about understanding the increasing complexity of the system, understand how it manifests, understand what it means, and be able to share that in a very simple and succinct way so that our team members uh, understand how to deal with this complexity in language that our teams understand, in ways that enables our teams to perform at peak capability. Uh, and sometimes we also need to uh, uh, step back and talk about the entire system, how the interconnectedness of the system works, how the entropy works, and share that with our teams, just from the point of view of developing them and developing their ability to do this entire three-step process. Um, uh, can be a regular activity that you do with your team. It can be something that you do once a month, once a quarter in your QBRs, where you invite one or two members of your team and sit down and work with them this entire process, figuring out where complexity is increasing, how does that impact your team, how do you simplify that so that everyone in the team understands what is relevant for them and therefore are able to operate at peak capability. By doing this, you are doing two or three things at the same time, right? So number one, you are building capability in your team members to understand and simplify complexity, which is a key skill if you really want to become a leader worth following. Leaders worth following create more leaders worth following. So you're doing that. Number two, it reduces your workload in terms of dependence, in terms of understanding the complexity and simplifying it. The more people in your team that can do that, the more they are able to do it well. The less load it is on you and yourself in order to kind of do this entire thing by yourself. And we can be absolutely sure that the complexity will increase over time. So, which means that if you do not let your team learn to do all of this, then it becomes super critical, and you become the bottleneck in order for the team to be able to make sense of all the complexity around them, right? And with time, our understanding of how systems function needs to evolve in a way that we can keep pace with this dynamically changing complexity of systems. And it is not just enough to understand and simplify, it is super important to communicate in a way that our teams are able to function at peak capability. Therein lies the skill that a leader worth following brings to the table, right? So I'll just stop there. um, it was good talking to you guys. I hope it was useful, helpful, and until tomorrow, this is Mukesh signing off. If you really like this kind of live streams, do subscribe and follow me on YouTube or anywhere else that you want to follow me. Uh, this is a journey that I am going on, a quest in order for me to become a leader worth following and take people who would like to follow along and want to become a leader worth following. It's a journey that we can take together and learn from each other. So until next live stream, this is Mukesh signing off. Take care. Bye bye.